Hi, my name is Eitan from Creative Sound Design, and in this video I'm going to show you all the different automation modes that will make you work faster. I'll work on Nuendo, so I'll demonstrate all of the automation modes with the Nuendo automation panel. But for those who have Cubase, we will start with the modes that both Nuendo and Cubase users have, and then escalate to the Nuendo only modes. Let's start with the fill column. To punch. In this mode, you punch in, meaning you start writing when you touch the fader, and you punch out when you release it. It allows you to search for the right value without saving the values written while moving the fader. Once you found the right curve, it is set from the point of punch in to where you punched out. To start. When you activate to start, it will apply the current value when you stop the playback from the punch out point to the start of the project. To end. To end is the same as to start, but from the point of punch out to the end of the project. Loop. This mode affects the entire area between the two locators. So you first need to set the locators where you want the automation change to happen. Then you can start changing the value till you find the right one. When you release the fader, the last value is set to the entire length between the two locators. Gaps. When use virgin territory is enabled in the settings, you will not see the automation between the gaps. We will elaborate on this later. But for now, just know that when you activate gaps, it will fill these gaps with the last value written. Now let's continue to the next column. Suspend read. When you activate one of these boxes, the program will ignore all the equivalent automation channels on all tracks, and it will play them with their current value where the cursor is located. So you can suspend read for the volume, for the EQ, etc. Suspend write. Suspend write is basically the same thing, so I won't dwell on it. Just click on the automation that you want to write enable suspend, and it will do it. Show. When you click on one of the boxes under the Show column, the equivalent automation channel will appear on all the tracks. If you want to see only automation that you actually changed, you can click on Used Only and then the kind of automation that you want to see. In the upper area, you have Activate and Deactivate Read and Write for all tracks. It basically speaks for itself. My recommendation is to never use them. Why is that? Well, if you have 50 tracks and some of them are read enable and others aren't, by clicking on one of these, it will make all of them read enable or all of them not read enable. And then you will have no way of undoing this, besides going to every one of the tracks and do it manually. The only one of those who can come handy is the last one, Deactivate Write for all tracks. That way, even if you spend some time writing something, you just click that, and then you can be sure not to write something by accident. I actually made that option a key command, so I will not have to click in this area, just to be sure not to make this fatal mistake. Now we'll talk about the automation modes. They basically decide what happens while writing. Touch mode. In this mode, automation data is written for as long as you actually touch the fader. It will punch out as soon as you release the control. Auto-latch. Auto-latch means that when you release the control, it will continue to write the last value till you stop the playback. Crossover. Crossover is a little different. It punches in when you touch the fader for the first time, but it punches out when you touch it for the second time and you cross over an existing automation curve. I myself never use it, and I recommend to work in touch or latch mode. Trim. Trim is similar to a VCA fader, but for automation curves. If you have a part that you are satisfied with, but is too low, for example, you can use trim to change its value without affecting the original curve. Let's continue and talk about the settings. If we click here, the settings menu pops up. Use undo branches is a really handy option that we are going to talk about later in this video, and it's a Nuendo only setting, so you won't find it in Cubase. For now, let's talk only about the options that both Cubase and Nuendo have. Show data on track. If you enable it, you will be able to see the waveforms on the automation tracks. It can make the work more precise, but it also makes the project much more loaded in terms of visual, as you can see. So in my opinion, it's a little too much. Use virgin territory. When you enable it, no automation curve is displayed on the automation track, and you find automation data only where you actually performed an automation pass. Continue writing. Well, this one I try to understand what it does, but I really didn't. So if someone can shed a light on this and comment in the bottom, it would be great. Reveal parameter on write. This is a very useful setting. As soon as you start writing an automation, the relevant automation track will appear. Return time. In the manual it says that this determines how fast the automated parameter returns to any previous automated value when you release the mouse button. Now let's say that I'm in touch mode and I want to write a volume automation. Return time determines the slope right here. Reduction level. It affects the function reduce automation events. I'm not going to go into a deep explanation on this, but my recommendation is to not touch it. Spike detection range. Sometimes when you want to write an automation, a spike will be created. We don't want that. So Steinberg has created the function right here in the function menu, delete automation spikes. Now this number right here is the distance in milliseconds between the two base points of the spike, and it actually determines what a spike is. How much pointed the spike has to be so this function would recognize it as a spike and remove the top point. Maximum punch logs. Determines how much punch logs are saved. We will talk about this later in this video. Freeze trim. So I'll go back to the channel where we used trim to show that. When trim is activated and you want to apply the freeze changes to the original automation curve, you have three options. Manually, which means you have to go to the function menu and choose freeze all trim automation in project or in selected track. On pass end, meaning that when you punch out, the freeze will happen automatically. On leaving trim mode, when you click trim and deactivate it, it will freeze and the trim curve will come back to 0. Anyway, the trim curve will come back to 0 after you freeze it. From now on, all the options and functions that we are going to talk about will be for Nuendo users only. Let's start with join. Basically, the join column helps you resume automation that you started and stopped writing for some reason. The first one is join now. Join now appears in latch mode after an automation has been written, and it allows you to resume automation manually by continuing to write the last written parameter automatically. I'll start by writing an automation curve. And I'll click on Join Now when I want to continue writing. Auto join. When pressed, it will automatically continue writing the last written parameter from the auto join time. The time code in here is the auto join time. It indicates the point where it will take effect. I'm not touching anything right now. Let's move on and talk about the preview mode. For me, this is the most important part of the automation panel in regards to post-production. The preview button lets you change automations and hear the changes without committing to it. It's kind of a test mode where I can change the automation without actually writing them. So as you can see, I'm changing the values of the volume fader, and we can hear those changes, but we don't see the volume automation channel changing. Suspend. Suspend allows you to make A/B testing between the new and old automations. Punch. After you are satisfied with the changes and you want to write them, you just click punch and the automations in preview mode will be applied. You can activate different modes in the fill column to apply these changes to different areas in the project. The most useful is loop mode. You decide what area you want to change, and you activate loop. Then, press on the preview mode and start making changes till you're satisfied with the results. Then you can do A/B testing by clicking on Suspend, and then you click Punch. The changes will be applied to the entire area between the two locators. I use this option all the time, and I even created a macro control for that. I'll show you how to make it and how to use it correctly in another video. Punch on play. It applies the automations in preview mode from the moment you start the playback to the moment you stop it. Auto punch. In this mode, Nuendo will write automatically what's in preview mode between the two locators, so you make changes in the preview mode, and then you start the playback before the left locator. Once the cursor crosses the left locator, it will punch in, and after crossing the right locator, it will punch out automatically. Touch Assist. This allows you to catch a whole group of parameters in preview mode in one touch. Those groups are inserts, EQ parameters, and sends. Let's say I have this area with EQ parameters and plugin inserts. I'll use Waves REQ. I'll make changes in the preview mode and punch them to the loop area. Now I want to copy them to another area, here. If we look at the channel settings window, we can see three major groups. Inserts, EQ, and Sends. If I want the preview mode to catch any one of the automations, I'll need to go one by one and touch them so I could copy them later. And we don't want to do that. So that's where the touch assist comes handy. If it's activated, you can touch only one control in a group and it will catch all the parameters that have been changed. If I want to catch the entire EQ, I can just touch that, for example. To catch the inserts, I can just touch one of the parameters in one of the plugins. Once everything is caught in the preview mode, I can just go to the other area where I want to copy it and punch it. Now, as you can see, both the areas that we selected have the same automations, but before, between, and after, no automations were written. Punch log. The punch log is a history of the punches you've made. So let's say I have written an automation in preview mode. And punched it. Now I want to apply the same automations to another part of the track. I'll mark the area I want to change with the Range tool, click Preview, click Loop to make sure that the automations are punched to the entire area between the locators, load the last punch log, and punch. I can also add punch logs that are previous to the last one. Now I'm going to talk about automation passes and branches. Passes are basically a history of the automations you've made. So first of all, you need to activate this power button right here and enable Use Undo Branches in the settings. I'm gonna write a few automations. Now, if you click here, the Automation Passes window pops up. Each line represents an action, and you can undo and redo actions by clicking under and above the line, or just by pressing Command Z, of course. Now it becomes really interesting with the automation branches. Those numbered boxes here are the steps you've made in each branch. For now, we just have one branch, but if we undo and write another automation on top of the third one, a branch will be created. Now I'm able to switch between different punches. I can undo and write other automations without losing data. A branch is basically a sequence of automation passes. Okay, that's it, you guys. So I hope you enjoyed, and I think that if you make the effort and try to integrate this into your workflow, it will save you a lot of time and energy. So don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.